All right, we are officially live. Hello and welcome to this week's installment of the Life Coaching Training Hangout series here at coachinghangout.com. I am Sean Adams. I'm the guy who started all this, but really most of the wisdom comes from the folks that are down below. These are the other folks that are in the Hangout. I'm letting them get situated and set up and get lower thirds in place and things like that. But this week we are continuing our conversation on the topic of screening. For screening, we have, last week we talked about how do you actually screen prior to actually bringing in a client at all. How do you make sure they're the right fit for you before you even bring them in? This week we're going to talk about, now that you've chosen a client, what's some of the work you do at the very front end to make sure that the coaching experience is as efficient and effective as possible for both you and for them. And so that could be anything from an intake form to a survey to just a general guidelines of how you do coaching. All those things are things we're going to talk about today, that secondary part of screening and making sure that your coaching runs efficiently. So having said that, I'm going to start to go ahead and introduce some of our folks who are here in the Hangout. I'm going to start with you, Ninka. You were up first. Why don't you go say hello to the world?
Okay, hi, I'm Nienke van Bezooyen from the Netherlands, author of the Dashboard for the Professional Speaker. I'm a speaker coach. I joined this Hangout quite a lot. Last episode I missed, but I did my homework and I watched it all. So I've seen you all sharing very valuable information, and I love to continue this week with you.
Excellent. We're glad to have you here. Glad you came back. Thank you for doing your homework and checking. Next, I'll go to Wendy. Wendy, why don't you go ahead and say hello to everyone?
Yep. Hi, I am Wendy from Melbourne, Australia. I am a director and lead coach at a traditional yet quite funky business school. We work with young professionals who will serve in important leadership capacities tomorrow. We are a Harvard and Nike and Disney all rolled into one. We work on many different levels using many different genres so that our graduates come out of our programs fully equipped for an excellent life both in and out of the office. We are very proud of our offering, and I am very honoured to be working in this space and very happy to be here today as well, talking about coaching and working with like-minded professionals who want to move clients forward.
Excellent. Welcome, Wendy. Glad to. I love how each week you redefine and perfect your elevator speech. I think it's great. So well done. Good to have you.
Yes, I wanted to get on a little bit early this morning, so I was awake enough to practice my new elevator speech. So
good job. It is all of what 5 a.m. there, so I appreciate you getting up and being there. That's fantastic. Next up, I'm just gonna jump around. So Lori, I think you were on next. So Lori, why don't you say hello to the peeps?
Hello, peeps. Hi, this is Lori. I'm in Montreal, and I am a skating coach, and I help adult skaters to do the impossible.
Fabulous. I like it. The impossible is always good. Next up, Dr. Randy, you are up next. Why don't you say hello to the world?
Well, good afternoon or good morning to some of you. Dr. Randy Ross coming to you from the Jersey Shore. And I am a retired chiropractor, and I always tease and say now I only work 70 hours a week. But my journey over the last dozen years has allowed me the opportunity to become what I refer to as a relationship marketing coach, teaching people how to build their businesses and really ingrain themselves in their communities based on relationships that give them long-term sustainable growth.
Excellent. We're glad to have you. Thanks for being here with us as always. And then the last person to have joined us, Mr. Robert McPhee. Hello, sir. How are you?
What? I finally put doctor up on my lower third, and then today you're going to call me Mr. McPhee? What's up with that?
There was no Dr. Allen, so I wasn't in that line of the doctor introductions.
Robert McPhee. I'm from San Diego, California. It's lunchtime for me, so I'll be having lunch while Wendy's having breakfast. I am the author of the amazing book, Manifesting for Non-Gurus, and I'm actually working on a new book called Practical Consciousness. I am a facilitator, which means I'm a speaker, author, coach, and consultant, and I love hanging out with you guys every Wednesday.
We're glad to have you here and the wisdom that you bring. So the way these things work is we all sit around, we talk, we have a topic, we discuss it, everybody gives their insights. Like I said at the beginning, this week is part 2 of that screening concept. Last week we talked all about how do you make sure that you're bringing in the right people? How do you make sure that the clients that you're bringing in actually are the right clients for you? That's the key here. That's what we talked about last week. This week we're talking about, now that you've chosen a client, you've agreed they're the right client for you, what is some of that other early on screening that you do to make sure that the coaching runs correctly? Do you have an intake form that you use? Do you have a basic outline of explanations of your expectations as a coach of your clients? As a coach, I expect you to show up on the calls on time. If you miss 1 call, it's an okay. If you miss 2 calls, blah, blah, blah. Like defining exactly what the agreements are, your style of coaching. Do you have something like that you share with them? Do you have a survey you ask them to fill out about their expectations of you? What information are you gathering about them? All of those questions are kind of what we're going to explore today, of how do you make sure that the transition of new client to a successful coaching program actually occurs effectively. So that's my question. That's my thought. I'm going to throw it out to you guys. Any thoughts from the Peanut Gallery today?
Can I add something from last week as well? Because I listened to it all this morning. It's evening over here. And what I try to do new, and I'm just going to launch it next week, is to do a pre-roll ad. It's this irritating commercials you have in front of your YouTube video you want to watch. And it's very specific target audience to my ideal client. I can even put it up in front of my competitors. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to launch that and see how that works. It's really a part of my campaign, and to search for my ideal client, because only the top CEOs on multinationals in the Netherlands Pacific part will get to see this pre-roll ad coming up. It's from video guys in London who are very advanced in that kind of thing. And what I do next is I have a new assistant, and if they call me, she can do a brief intake form with just general questions like you guys sort of mentioned last week. And then she will decide for the main coach, the head coach or the top coach, and she will refer them to me as a strategic plan. Let's see how that works. But it's the first screening, and if they make a lot of trouble around her, she won't refer them to me.
So I think that's an interesting advertising perspective. But so are you saying that part of the screening that you're doing is being very deliberate about who is seeing your advertising?
Yeah, and especially who is not going to see it. It's much more who not than who is. It's very, very targeted in what I want, in what they do, what their hobbies are, what they watch, what they do, what they see, what their income is. Everything is listed, and it's really targeted to that kind of market.
Excellent. So you're doing a lot of that pre-screening we talked about last week through
and then I'll do that. Yeah.
In front of the eyes. Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. That's a great tip from a marketing perspective. Is if you can design your marketing to only get in front of the people that you defined as your ideal client, your marketing is going to be. Yeah. You may get less calls, but you're going to get a whole lot more.
Yeah. For example, if I have a lot of CEOs and they do all the quarters finance announcements, and they have it all on video, because they have it for the company. If somebody wants to watch it, I can be, "Hi, I'm Nienke. Are you dreading or struggling with your upcoming presentation? Bah, 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 bah. Here I am. Just give me 2 minutes and bah, bah, I do it." Something like that. Instead of a TV commercial, what's usually on YouTube, and that doesn't work. So it's very nice to see, and in the background it's all very, very specific in who is going to see it and who I want in. And then my helper will just screen them first.
Great. So it sounds like there's some really good, intelligent stuff going on for the screening. knowing who your ideal client is, knowing how you're going to get it in front of them, speaking directly to what their pain is, kind of all the stuff we talked about last week, which is great.
Yeah.
So once they've been screened, though, and now that you know you want them as a client, what's that next step that people are doing? Because that's what today's call is about, is what is that next step, that thing that we're going to focus in on. When you have a client already, you've brought in a new client to your coaching program, what are some of the things you're doing?
I do them a survey, what they expect and what they want to accomplish, and in what time.
Excellent. Perfect. So I think, and I'm a big fan of surveys as well. It gets clarity. I know Dr. Allen had his 6 or whatever questions he talked about last week that he asked even before they're in, but you could turn some of those questions into survey questions afterwards as well about what is it that you do, what is it you want to get out of coaching, what would be a successful 6 months or however long your coaching program, what would it look like if this 6 months of coaching were successful, those kind of questions, so that you can get an idea of who they are, what their impression is of what can be achieved in coaching, so on and so forth. So
and what they expect from me, that's very important. If they expect something really, really odd or unreasonable, I can tell them up front. That's very important to me.
Excellent. All right, other thoughts from folks? I think that's spot on, but other ideas and thoughts? Robert, are you muted? Robert, you're muted.
Robert doesn't have a thought.
That's what I get. That's what I get for trying to be polite. I think that's all really good and really important to get clear on people's vision and what they want to accomplish and how we can help them. But one of the things I got a recent really powerful reminder of with a client was how important it is to also capture where they are now, to get agreement and understanding about what the starting point is in the coaching. So whether it's 90 days or 6 months or a year or whatever it is down the road, when we're evaluating how valuable the coaching was for them, we have a good solid benchmark that everyone kind of agreed to. And for me, that's partially a conversation, and it's partially something similar to what Ninka was sharing about kind of an intake form, a survey, where they're answering questions, they're telling me where they are now and what it is they want to accomplish.
Great, and I think you're spot on. I think that's really important to kind of start at that basic level as well and make sure that stuff is clear and everybody knows exactly what that's going to look like. So I agree with you on that, Robert. Other thoughts from other folks?
Sean, I use actually a pretty long intake form, and I require that the prospective client fills it out themselves, not hands it over to assistant. I hope that they do that. And I require that they actually handwrite it, and I give them a certain time frame that they have to turn it around so that we can schedule. I mean, for me, for what I do, what I always term as relationship marketing, there's really a lot of information that I want to find out, where they've been in that realm in their business over the years, and it's really, a good reflection on who they are, especially if it's almost blank when I get it back, and I know that they have not been effective at being out in the community. Now, sometimes that tells me that they're actually not the right candidate for me because there's someone that's not going to do these kind of strategies. But sometimes I can, through the course of our consultation, determine that they just needed someone to give them that guidance on how to do it. So my process is a little more involved, but I also find that it's a little bit of a filter, because the people that don't even want to take the time, and it probably takes them a good hour to fill it out, then obviously instantly they're not the right client for me.
Gotcha. So it acts both as a secondary survey or a secondary point of removing folks. So you're basically I'm blanking on the word that we've used in the past, but you're just defining them as not an ideal client. But it also is giving you an idea of where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, what they do have some information on, and it's also, I'm guessing, something that you could almost give them at the end of your coaching. You could almost give them a similar survey and assess and use it as an assessment tool of this is where you started and this is where you're at now. Look how much success you had because of the coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. We do that. I usually do that kind of after a couple of months. It's similar to like if you're going through some kind of weight loss program or something, the way you kind of see where you were, where you're at, where else you have to go. But for me, it's a great tool for me to help them, because a lot of times they've gone like a little ways with the process. They've started those relationships, but they just didn't really understand how to expand on them. So that tells me I don't have to start from, step one. They've already done that. We can move forward, and it actually winds up in the long run for the ones that we're successful working with actually being a time saver.
Gotcha. Yeah. So like you can tell that they get the community is important, even if they haven't really been successful at it. That kind of idea.
Yeah.
Good. I like it. Awesome. Other thoughts from anybody else?
I have a couple of things. When I do passion mapping and I'm using somebody else's license, which passion mapping is, we're asked to use their form, and their form asks participants whether they have any illnesses and issues that they need to declare, because with passion mapping quite often the illnesses will come up, or it's a sign of stuck energy, so it's important for us to know that stuff. I don't ask it in my usual regular coaching intake form. With that one, I use my intake form more as a risk management thing and a setting up framework expectations thing. And I think we talked a little bit about this last week, about getting the expectations right. So on that form, I ask the usual question, what's the burning goal? What's the number one thing that you really want to get out of coaching? Write that in. But apart from that, and the usual stuff around name, address, occupation, it's about I provide a clear framework around what coaching is, what coaching isn't, what they are expected to do and bring to coaching, and what I will do for them in coaching, so that the framework is very clear from the beginning. And I also can't remember what it is now, but I put a little bit around some stuff, and I asked them to sign it as a bit of a risk management thing as well, just as a small piece of protection and clarity around what my obligations are. So if anything happens further down the track, I know in reality that if somebody's going to sue us, they're going to sue us. But to me, that's just a little bit of extra protection, and it makes me feel good as well, because I've got that in place before they start.
Yeah, I think that's great. I especially love the idea of a little risk management, acknowledging. I mean, one of the big things, and we've talked about this in previous Hangouts, is the fact that coaching is not counseling. We are not trained counselors. We have no right to be trained counselors. We do not counsel people. And that's part of that intake early on stuff. You need to make that very clear, what it is that coaching does and does not do. And then I like the other thing I would add to yours is also, the thing I always add to my intake forms is access. What access do they get to have to me? Can they send me 13 emails a day with questions, or do they have to, are they allowed like one email a week plus our regular calls? Making sure you're clear on what that access is. Do they have Skype access? What's the expectation of responses? Those kind of questions I think are very good to define early on too, because some people will go into coaching, get a coach, and then just bombard that coach with questions all the time and attack them in any medium they can find them. We actually had somebody who posted a comment on this, the event page for this Hangout that had nothing to do with this Hangout. It just, they saw me and they wanted to ask me a question, so they posted it on this Hangouts comment feed. And so I deleted the comment because it had nothing to do with this Hangout, and I reached out to the person independently. But that's not an appropriate vehicle. This Hangout is about a specific topic. This event is about a specific topic. Same thing with that. Like Skype is, if there's an emergency question you need to ask or get clarity, that's fine. But it is not, should this be the title of my coaching program? Well, that can be something that can wait till our weekly calls. Just because you want to have your page done today does not mean I have to, as the coach, now drop everything else I'm doing to answer a bunch of questions so that you can do something that's an emergency to you, where you easily could have asked that 3 days ago, but you didn't have your site ready by then. That's not my fault, kind of thing. So defining that access is a piece I also find very important.
Yeah, the context you talk about is the context of the coaching. What are the borders and what they can or can't cross? Another thing I do, but that's part of my kind of coaching, I take everything on my video camera, what I do. And if I coach them online, I do it on a Hangout, and I have everything what they do online or visible. It's a private access. Nobody else can do it unless they give a specific announcement that they agree that somebody else can see it too. But if they don't want to be taped on my coaching as a speaker coach, they're not for me. That's a real test to me, because if they don't want to look at themselves in a videotape, do they want to be watched by many others too?
Yeah,
that's my test.
I think that's a great disqualification. That was the word I've been trying to think of for the last 20 minutes. Disqualification approach is making sure, like, this is something that has to happen, especially for you and what you do in speaking coaching. For me, I don't need to videotape the Hangouts. I mean, I usually do my coaching via Hangout anyway, just so people can refer back. But it's important to know what it is that you're doing, and are there specific things that are relevant to the types of coaching. I may have, if I'm doing some kind of spiritual coaching with somebody to try to help them get, like, to develop a spiritual coaching program or something along those lines, I may have in my expectations that you're spending 30 minutes a day in meditation. And I'm going to ask, hey, like, did you do your meditation a day? I might shoot them off an email. If they say no, I'm like, you're not holding up your end of the bargain. So there may be other expectations we have of them that very much matches the type of coaching we do, which is another aspect of this secondary screening piece, is making sure that they're clear on the type of coaching you do and that what the help they want matches the type of coaching that you do, so that there is a better fit. You may not have gotten all of that cleared in the initial disqualification round, but in that second round, you're making sure that it's clear. This is the type of coaching I'm doing. If it's business coaching, we're going to talk about your business, and I don't care that you had a
your dog is ill.
Unless it affected your business, unless you didn't go to work today because you had a fight. But like, there's personal coaching, there's business coaching. Sometimes the personal will affect the business, and there's flexibility there. But you got to be really clear. Like, this is what we talk about in the coaching sessions.
Yeah.
Other thoughts? Go ahead.
I had a couple things I'd love to add. I think what Ninka is bringing up in a couple of different cases is a really good example of how important it is that our clients are committed to this process. And the questions that she's asking are not only setting that baseline, but really allowing them to anchor into their commitment. And I just recently heard some statistics. I don't know how accurate these statistics are. I'm a big believer in the fact that 95% of all statistics are made up anyway. So, but the statistics I heard were, in terms of results from coaching, 10% of those results are a direct result of the actual coaching, like what we know, the skills we have, the knowledge we have, the experience, the suggestions. 30% is as a result of how we show up, like who we are, kind of the being versus the doing. And that 60% of the results that come from coaching come directly from the commitment level of the client. Yeah. And again, I don't know how accurate those statistics are, but I just think intuitively it makes a lot of sense to me. And if we can get a client to start the process from a place of a really powerful commitment, our job gets easier and we're able to help them a lot more. And then the other thing, Sean, you were talking about kind of setting limits and gaining clarity about the level of access. I would love to hear from other people about kind of what level of access do you allow to your clients as part of your agreement, as part of your coaching arrangements. What kind of access are people allowing or offering to their clients?
Depends how much they pay.
And I think that's really a good point, because access is money dependent. I mean, if you want
time is money.
Group coaching, I'll charge you $100 an hour. Individual coaching, I'll charge you $200 an hour. And me coming to your place and doing live coaching for your entire company, now we're talking a couple thousand. I'm throwing out numbers, but it's that idea of access costs, and I think that's a good point, Nika.
Yeah, especially a lot of my clients, the CEOs, they don't want to be coached during daytime. They want in the evening hours or weekends. It can be, it has a price. Mm-hmm. And if they want access in the evening, it can be, it has a price. If you want high-level coaching, like you say, Sean, it's high-level price. Mm-hmm. And if you just have a one-to-one Skype meeting with me, I can charge you €250. Fine. You get a videotape from that and a personal report. That's it. But if you want to have a full coaching session from 10 hours in several weeks and evenings or weekends, and I join you in your final presentation to be your backup and support person in the background, and even tape it for you, fine, it has a price. So it depends what they want, what their expectations are, and what they pay. I'm not going to do it for 70 euros.
Sure. Makes
High
sense.
level price, highest level coaching.
Makes
In
sense.
an agreement,
Yeah.
not without agreement.
Other folks on thoughts on that? How you define access? What level of access you give?
I use it, access to me, it's usually, I think I put something like, and you get limited access to me in between calls. And I use it as a bit of a carrot and as a way of bumping the price up as well. An added extra. I can't remember what Alex would call it in marketing terms. Bonus, whatever.
Upsell.
Upsell.
Yeah. But I've got to say, I've found that very few people have abused that. They really will either not contact me in between, or it might be just once or twice. I've really only had one case where the person was bordering on having some true counselling mental health issues, and she wanted a bit more access to me, and that was okay at the time. You know, I was fine. I was prepared to give her more access to me at the time, and in hindsight it worked really well because we've got a good relationship now, and it just made her foundation stronger to then move forward.
I think that's another important point, is that we talk about this of having, you know, clear defined limits and limitations and access and all this stuff. There's also the best coaching is where you're able to be flexible, where you may say you get, you know, one Skype message, one email a week between calls, and the person might have a really bad week, reach out to you a couple times, and you just let it go because you know it was an exception and it was fine. And I mean, there is that aspect of you've got to learn as a coach to be flexible and open to making minor adjustments when it's needed and when it's required, but not making that the norm, making that the exception, and just doing it out of compassion for the, because if you ultimately will not make that exception because it was in black and white and you didn't follow it, then you probably shouldn't be in coaching, because coaching is wanting your person to be as successful as possible and being able to support them, even if that means some minor flexibility on your part. At least that's my opinion. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So I thought that was a great example, Wendy.
Thank you. Can I ask the group something? Can we just process something very quickly? Is that all right if we just spend 5 minutes and I get the group's thoughts, and it's related to this? And it's okay. I had an issue yesterday, and I just want to get your thoughts on it, because I came away from it and I'm not quite sure what I really should have done. So what happened was I was finishing up the call with one of my clients, and I said, okay, so what strategies are you going to put in place this week for your productivity and to stop your procrastination so that you actually move forward and do what you said you were going to do and to commit to between now and our next call? And she said, oh, could you do me a favor and email me every couple of days, because it just puts a bomb under me, and it's that, you know, it'll really get me moving. It'll keep me on track. And so I said, okay, I will this time, but next time we're going to spend the first 10 minutes talking about internal strategies that you can use yourself to stop procrastination. But I came off the call thinking, oh, should I have just said no? Was I being too nice and being a bit of a yes person? And did I? Yeah. So was that a clear case of where I just should have been really strong and said no, and put it back in her court automatically? And I'm asking that question on two levels: that empowerment thing for her, but that personal thing for me about not always saying yes to people when I actually want to say no. In the end, I just set up 3 emails that will go out over a few days, so it's all done. It only took me 5 minutes, and now I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I don't know. I just came away thinking, gee, did I go out? Did I move out of the coaching identity and just become a bit of a too nice?
Well, I think there's a couple ways to approach this, and I'll give my answer, and then we'll get thoughts from other folks too. I don't want to be the only person chiming in. My 2 thoughts on this is, it's not, if it's the one time, and like you said, it took 5 minutes to schedule 3 emails, they're going to go out, you're done, you walk away. Not a big time consumption, not a big deal. To me, that's fine if that helps and it's a way to trigger them, and then maybe the next coaching call you come up with a system for them to set their own reminders to be able to trigger themselves instead of needing to rely on you to do that as a lesson. That's a possible approach. Like, so did this work? Great. Now, how can you do it so that you give yourself your own reminders?
That's a good idea.
That kind of system. So you're empowering them to take responsibility for their own if they know reminders help them, empowering them to come up with their own reminder system for themselves could work. The other thing the other observation I just want to comment is the fact that you're bringing this up, to me, means you didn't feel like it was something you should have done. It sounds to me, because you're bringing it up, that there is a piece of you that felt you gave in and were too nice, and that's just an outside observation.
Yeah.
And I know that you're unbelievably loyal to your clients and are willing to help them succeed, and so I know that. But because you're asking this question and the way you phrased it a little bit, it seems to me that some part of you really does think that probably you shouldn't have done that. And it's an observation. I'm not saying what you're doing it was right or wrong, just an external observation. Other thoughts from folks?
I'm gonna kind of agree with what you just said, Sean. Wendy, it sounds like you're questioning if you became an enabler to this client of yours, probably, not having the commitment level that they need, and now is going to rely on you to trigger that in them. So
Yeah.
it's a delicate balance. I'm guilty of it myself quite often. For me, we have community wellness day events that are seasonal, twice a year, and this I'm sure you'll understand, Wendy, what I'm saying is our events start this Saturday, and they're scattered for the next 3 weeks, and I tell people for these, the week before their event, the morning of their event, they can call me at 5 o'clock in the morning if they're freaking out that nobody's going to show up, and what am I going to do, and it's going to rain, and, if I could answer a phone call and kind of talk them down off that ledge so that they can move forward and have a great event, I do that. Is that right? I don't know, but I would feel bad if I didn't offer that. So I think it's, it's a delicate tightrope that we probably often walk.
And I think that's a great observation of the like, if they've got a major thing happening and you've been helping them get it set up and they're going to be stressed, of course I'll make myself more available to them. Sometimes they'll take it, sometimes they don't, but just the offer of being more available is enough to give them the confidence that they don't need to reach out to you. At least that's been my observation. So I think that's a good point, Randy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the same thing happened to me when I did the business resultancy coaching before the speaker coaching. I've been in similar situations like, oh, can you just text me once a day that I brush my teeth or something silly. Now, what really makes you feel awkward that you have to remind them of. And then I just discussed it with them. Why do you need me to do that? Just like you said, Sean. Why? But sometimes if you are the example to them, that if they can rely on you, sometimes it helps them to rely on themselves. That's what my experience was. To my CEO client with a big presentation coming up, if they freak out, I do the same as Randy. You can call me anytime, and nobody does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want
to service.
I know Randy used the word enabler, and the other thing that's popping up for me right now in this conversation is you're also not your client's accountability partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what a lot of this, can you remind me, can you check, you know what? That's why you need to get an accountability partner, somebody who you can call for 5 minutes every morning and say, did you do what you said you were going to do yesterday? Yeah. That's not you as a coach, you are not their accountability partner. And that might be something you want to add into your coaching is, for early on, is who is going to be your accountability partner throughout this coaching to make sure you do what we commit to. That might be something, especially bringing it back to our topic for this week, that might be something to add into that intake
checklist.
Yeah, good idea.
So go ahead, Lori. I know you kept showing your phone, so I'm guessing you have something to say.
Yeah, I'm a kind of cruel person, and I say that we have so much technology that can set up reminders for people. Because I go through this, with my teenagers, and they're teenagers, their kind of brains are all over the place because they're 15 and they're 17, so I cut them some slack. But anybody I know that's gotten through university, and is an adult and is working must have some degree of organizational skills, and I guess I'm a little bit more heartless than Wendy. I would take a step back and say, maybe your next goal is just to find yourself some software that's going to beep and buzz and make obnoxious noises to remind you to do things, which is what I did with one of my kids. I mean, he's got an iPod that makes the most obnoxious noise now that drives all of us nuts, but it gets the job done for him. So anyway, that's just my thought on that. But I'm sort of probably much more heartless than Wendy is.
Well, no, and I think but I think that's your coaching style, and so as long as you're clear about that up front, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great approach, and it's an important piece of it. I mean, I have an alarm on my phone that goes off at the same time every night, and it's my way of saying, get to bed, you bonehead. Because I'm caught up in reading or working on some stuff for my own business or talking to folks or whatever, and the alarm goes off, and even if I don't jump and get into bed at that exact time, it's kind of that okay, you need to shut down for the day. Stop.
Conscience speaking.
Yep. So it's a great little. I mean, the phone reminders can be extremely powerful. I think that's a great thing.
You can use it as an example too, Wendy. You can use it as an example, and then you don't have the feeling that you have to do something for them, what they can do themselves.
Yeah, I love the conversation that's just come up around that coaching style as well, and how coaching style comes into the issues that come up, and that's just triggered something around. Isn't it interesting? A lot of us sit here and talk about accountability, and you didn't do what you said you were going to do, and and so on, whereas I love that side of it. I love it when they don't do their stuff, and I love then spending the next 20 minutes with them exploring their barriers and looking at what's getting in the way and why they didn't do what they said they were going to do, whereas I know it's horses for courses. Some coaches would prefer to have that accountability approach and let's move. So, yeah, horses for courses.
Yeah, but I love that too, because you're right. I mean, you guys know I've called myself a hard-ass coach in the past, where if somebody's made a commitment and by the third time they still haven't done it, I'll hang up on them. I'll just end the coaching call right there. But you're right, Randy. The first time they don't do the commitment, we will spend a lot of time talking about why didn't you do it, what got in the way, what's really preventing you from moving forward. The second time is that second trigger, like you said you're going to change and you haven't. What's going on here? And sometimes it does take that piece of hanging up on them and then wasting a few $100s that hour, and sometimes I'll be, depending on it is, like I said, I'll be obnoxious and send them an email and say, you know what, I just had the most fabulous steak dinner with this $50 bottle of wine, and I then had dessert afterwards, and you know what, I still have money to go out again tomorrow, all because I didn't have to spend time coaching you, but you still paid me because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. That kind of stuff, and I do that not just to rub it in their face, but to help them take and get an understanding of the value that they lost. Because for them, they may be like, oh, it's the $250 an hour, $250. But if I can frame it in I just got to do all these amazing things you say you love to do, but you lost that money and I got it, and neither of us did anything. That's pretty awesome for me. That's enough to be able to kind of be that wake-up call sometimes.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of good too. This is awful. It's very unprofessional. Is when they get sick and they haven't given you 24 hours notice.
Yeah.
That ka-ching, that's when I just pocket $150 for half an hour. So, yes.
Yeah.
Which is very awful, so I should be more empathetic to their illness.
Let's keep in mind this call is being recorded here, folks. So.
Dirty little secret.
I'm not too scared about my clients, but sometimes I have to deal with big egos in the CEO world. They like to tell others what you have to do. And it makes my work sometimes a challenge to step up and say, well, yes, I'm your coach. Are you coachable? Do you want some results? You better listen to me. And that's why you're here. Yeah. And that can be a trigger point as well in the pre-test or pre-assessment what I do. Are you coachable? And of course they say yes. But in this world, I'm not very easily going to my competitor coaches or other coaches because I don't have access to them if they had coaching at all at the CEO level.
Well, and I think that's an important thing to note is it's knowing who your person is and what they're taught. It's getting to understand the personality styles, because if they're a CEO, they're used to always being in charge and taking orders is not always the easiest. But that's also where it can be really fun if I'm stuck with one of those clients who's so used to being told, telling everybody else what to do, that a lot of times that's when I'll even be tougher on them, because they need to recognize what it's like to be, because they're ultimately going to be better at their job if I help them understand if that's their mentality, that what I said goes. Well, you're paying me, that means I'm now your CEO, and now what I said as coach goes, and if you don't do it, this is the repercussions. That actually can be a wake-up call to them as just an overall better person. I know, Robert, you had something you wanted to say as well. So.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to Wendy's question. I think it's a really great question. I love the conversation that's come from it. And when I first heard your question, Wendy, I could totally relate. And you and I have had this conversation. You know, I'm also that person who loves to say yes. So, but I think there's an opportunity there for some really valuable coaching for the client who is stuck in this kind of yes-no dilemma, and the reality is there's a third option, and we've had a couple of third options come up in this conversation. Rather than feeling like you need to say yes or you need to say no, neither one of which really feels comfortable to you, you could go into a conversation with them about an accountability partner. You know, maybe this is a good time to help them understand the value of an accountability partner and the even greater value of that accountability partner not being your coach, because it's two separate roles. It really isn't an appropriate role for you to fill if you are going to be their coach, and get them to think about who would be a good accountability partner for them, which adds a tremendous amount of value to what you're doing for them. The other, kind of third option instead of just yes or no is what Lori suggested, that maybe technology could be a solution to the problem. So you're not really saying no, but you're also not saying yes. You're not agreeing to do something that really isn't a good fit for you or the client. So
I want to build off that, because this thought just hit me as an interesting concept. There's also, like, I think, Wendy, you had mentioned earlier the concept of an upsell. You could combine that accountability, reminder, technology thing. I think of it from a text message thing. If I have a text messaging software and I could have the, text accountability to blah, blah, blah number, and what it is I schedule it so that 3 times a week they get a message saying, hey, did you do what you committed to today? And it could be the exact same message every 3 days.
That's fantastic. That's great. You've been hanging around Alex too long, but that's really
actually, I think that one up at Icon. That one came out of Icon, but it's that concept of, and you could say, you know what, for that, if you really want that level of accountability, I will make sure you get a text 3 times a week asking you if you've done it. You just vary them a little bit so they seem like they're new, and you just say, type this to this, and you just set up a text autoresponder system, and it just does that for them. Because to be honest, I'll admit, a text message reminder is going to be a lot more powerful than an email reminder, because that's in front of my face. It's jarring enough, where an email, it's lost in the flow of all the other thousands of emails.
Yeah.
I check my email twice a day, so it isn't that effective to me. But text messages.
I appreciate all of your responses. I've written them all down.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
And if anybody wants information on text message stuff, let me know. I'll offline, and I'll help you out with it.
Did you say that you use that through Infusionsoft or something? Did you say?
I did. I actually am I have a text messaging system that is incorporated with Infusionsoft that I can actually set up. They're called campaigns in Infusionsoft, and it actually can be mixed in with email. So let's say somebody's in a program, you can send them a reminder about their next coming thing and have those text messages get sent out to them as reminders, all built into the campaign of new client. You click it, and they go through this of, here's an email with the PDF of all the information, here's the form they have to fill out, like the survey form, as well as where they have to sign it saying, I acknowledge all this. Then they get to schedule their first thing. That schedule goes in, and it reminds them of their thing. I mean, there's ways to automate all this to make it even more effective for you and easier on you, because I know a lot of times that's the problem we run into as coaches. And so maybe that could be next week's talk is automation or simplification. How can you make the coach-client communication simpler, more automated, and more effective? So maybe I'll make that next week's topic.
And that'd be good too, because then we get to tap into your most recent knowledge, the fact that you are learning deeper stuff around that. So that would be very innate or useful for all of us.
Yeah, I could even do a little mini tour of some of the stuff that exists, and I'm transparent as all get out. I am a certified partner with Infusionsoft. My other job outside of what I do with Alex and with this coaching hangouts is I help small businesses automate and achieve more success through using this program called Infusionsoft. And so I'm going to use Infusionsoft as the platform for explaining this. I'm being transparent on that. This is what I do for a living, so I can speak to it effectively. I'll show you some examples of campaigns I've built and systems that exist and how you can integrate a bunch of these different things to make life easier. So I'm just being transparent on that. That it's in some ways it's going to be a sell. I don't think I've ever sold a single product on any of these coaching hangouts, and I'm not necessarily going to make it a hard sell on next week's. But I am letting you guys know it's a product I offer through one of my businesses, so I'm just being transparent. That being said, I open back up.
Yeah, thank you. And I will just add to that, and once again, it's about all working with each other. I just had a conversation with Les yesterday, Les from Scotland, around helping me streamline my websites, make it all smoother, make it all, the brand, just help me. I've got to make my brand consistent across all the sites and get them talking to each other beautifully. So that would be another element that could then come in as well. You could be someone that could help us add that to then automate as well. So not only is it everything seamless and connected, but then we also add automation to that as well. So yeah, I like that.
As part of the professional coaching. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it goes wider than coaching, but yes, definitely.
Because it's the coaching hangout. I thought, well, this is a professional way you can coach it well by getting things automated and use the techniques you have. I had a very bad experience with the text notifications of Infusionsoft because they were wrong programmed. So I think a lot of people after a beep event, international from Asia, got at 2 o'clock at night the whole bunch of participants an email of a SMS text notification. Thank you for be on time tomorrow.
It's important to distinguish. There's actually only one program out there that's automated within Infusionsoft for sending out text messages, and then there's a lot of other programs that think they are and are not. So
well, perhaps it was.
This is all part of what I've been learning. So I switched it over. If anybody wants to learn a little bit more, that's my other business. That's my online business card for my other business, just for fun. But so next week we'll talk automation and you're right. I want to make sure it's still talking about coaching, and it doesn't have to be Infusionsoft. There's ways you can automate your business using other things like Schedule Once and other things where you're not having to manually deal with the schedule. There's lots of other options that exist out there. So we'll talk about that all next week on the next Hangout. We are approaching the end of the hour, so I'm going to just open it up. I'm going to go left to right. So I'm preparing Dr. Randy because she gets to go first. I'm going to go left to right just for final thoughts, ideas, whatever might have popped up from today's Hangout. Go ahead, Dr. Randy.
Okay, am I unmuted? Yeah, I'm unmuted. Okay. Well, just one thing I want to mention that I think kind of got left out of this that I know for me is an important factor in, considering a new client or determining if they're a good fit, which we can use today that's really awesome, is all the technology. I mean, before I ever get on a call with someone, even if they fill out all my paperwork, I'm online, I'm looking at their website, I'm looking at their Facebook pages, I'm looking at their G+ pages, because it really tells me a lot about them, especially as a business person. I mean, I don't, I'm not looking at, their drunk picture from Friday night in the club on their Facebook. I would tell them that's probably not a great idea, but that's not what it's really about. But if someone, hasn't updated their website in, 8 or 10 years, then we know that that's probably a dynamic that we're going to have to address, that they're not on top of understanding that technology is a part of every business, it doesn't matter what you do, and that you have to be updating more frequently than maybe some of us that are a little bit older here are used to. I always tell people, 25 years ago you could almost do the same thing in business for 5 or 10 or 15 years and it continued to be effective, and obviously we all know now that that's quite different. But for me, this was awesome. One of the big takeaways is something that I don't use that I'm definitely going to start putting in place is this accountability partner. I am excited to use that as a tool and get some people off of my back.
Yep, it's a lovely way of passing the daily accountability off in a way that also empowers them. So I'm glad you're going to be using that. That makes me happy. Lori, your thoughts? Any last wrap-up ideas?
Yeah. Wendy, you've really tweaked my interest with integrating websites. Maybe I'll give Les a call too, or maybe Sean. We don't know. One thing that I never got to bring up was really managing unrealistic expectations. And I don't know about, because I'm physically in the same space with people doing a physical skill, I have a lot of people that come with really unrealistic expectations, and my task as a coach is to maintain the enthusiasm and the desire without putting them in a situation where they're going to hurt themselves physically, which they can. Sometimes they want to attempt an element that their bodies just aren't able to do. Case in point, I see a young fella who's only been skating 2 years, and his coach is letting him do a double jump, and he's going to hurt himself big time soon.
Wow.
Very dangerous to watch this. And so that's my biggest challenge, is really handling unrealistic expectations. Or they've been with another coach who said, yeah, anything's possible. You just got to get out there and try it. And and they go racing around, and I'm just waiting for the hip to break, and I'm just thinking, okay, let's get my phone ready with 911 and the address of the facility. And I don't want to do that. So. And sometimes too, you kind of piss people off if you say, "Look, I don't think that's realistic," and but I was told I could. So
well, I think some of that can even be addressed in the in what we talked about last week. Like, if you think that you're going to be doing a triple Lutz in the first year of skating, I'm not your coach, and please don't approach any other coaches.
You can do that up to a point, but you'd be amazed how people sort of inflate their skills sometimes, and you get a lot of people thinking they're doing clean double jumps, and they are not. They are so badly cheated, and they get, like, when you say to them, "Look, I'm sorry, that's not a clean double jump. That you're going to be penalized, but for that, if you compete that." They get all mad at you. It's like, "Oh, no, it's clean, and then they swear and they competed, it was clean. And now with the new judging system, I can say, "Okay, show me your marks, show me where the judge gave you your double for that," and it's like, and that's the end of that conversation. But I think,
and it's an interesting one from a physical, and it might even go to the speaking side.
Yeah.
The first coaching session is, I want to, here are the 12 basic skills that you said you know how to do. Do them.
Yeah.
Show them.
Yeah. I think that's a good approach. I like it. Thanks, Lori.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
All right.
The other thing I get is, no, I don't want to. So I can't. I'm scared. I won't.
Good. All right, Nika. Any last thoughts for you?
Yeah, well, so what Wendy brought up, it's really the different kind of coachees you have as well, how you approach them. If it is business, if it is ice skating, or it is my CEOs, or starting businesses, and it all needs the flexibility, like Sean said, and just see what your client needs, and just see what you can do about it, or somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're spot on. It makes sense. Thanks. Robert, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think the one most powerful takeaway for me comes out of Wendy's question, and it's just that reminder that as coaches, one of our roles is to expand people's point of view, that their relationship with us offers them points of view that they wouldn't otherwise have. So when a kind of a yes-no question comes our way, to pause long enough to consider that maybe there's other options besides just yes or no. So that's good for me to take away and into my coaching relationships.
Yeah, coaching is not a black and white kind of existence. I hear you. Wendy, last thoughts from you?
I should probably just put in a retraction of my comment earlier about being happy when they get sick and pocketing the money. Can we edit that from the video, or can I just do the newspaper thing? I'm putting in a retraction now. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean it. It was being very flippant of me. So apologies to coachees out there. That's my last thought.
No worries, that happens. We all. This can be a very lighthearted group, so I totally understand that. No worries. Before I do my final wrap-up, we're going to get first and final brief words from Dr. Allen, who just hopped on. So, Dr. Allen, you want to say hello to everybody and just give a brief hello?
Well, I do want to say hello, and I want to say that I wish I had more to offer for this particular hangout, but I'll double what I have to say next time.
All right, that works for me. I'm good with that. It's good to have you there as always. I am Sean Adams. my final thought and take from this is the fact that you've got to be flexible. Ultimately, no matter how well you've got to define your expectations and then be flexible around them. You can't have it one or the other. It's got to be both if you're going to truly be successful. So that's my thoughts. Next week we're going to talk about automation, simplification, ways to make your coaching program run easier. And we'll do a little bit of talk about some back-end automation, but we'll also just talk about general, like what are some of the areas that you need to be looking at that can make life easier. So that's what we've got next week. I will send out the invite for the event much earlier than I did this time. My apologies for setting up the event.
It's fine. Can I just say something, Sean? Just very briefly. Next time I have to do my homework again and watch afterwards because I have to pitch for my own TED talk.
No.
Just keep your fingers crossed. At the Hangout, I will be on stage and pitching my live and just to see what I can take out of it. Just wanted to know that I love to be there, but this goes first.
No worries. Good luck with that.
We'll send out vibes. Can I just add to that? I've got a question around that. Next week I'm going to be at my accommodation place packing it up, and there's no internet anymore because I've cut it off. So if I come along to this call, I will be on my phone, which is about linking it in. But I've just got one question around that. Somebody said if I use a phone for stuff, for internet, it takes all you can use up in 10 minutes your whole month's worth of data or whatever it is, bandwidth. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, because Hangouts are very data heavy, and that's why we recommend being hardwired on a fast speed internet. So it could take up a lot of your. It depends what your data program is and how.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
All right. So I might only be on the call for 5 minutes, or I might not be on it at all then.
No worries. Totally understand.
And we can watch both afterwards, Wendy.
Oh, well, that's
will be fine.
There'll be a recording. You guys can watch the recording. I'll even put a couple links in there for you guys to learn more about some of the automation stuff we talk about.
Thank you so much, Sean.
All right, you guys have a fantastic week, and I'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Sorry.